Man, I cannot believe it has been 17 years since we got Bad Boys 2. Wow, I am really starting to get old. Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we're talking about Bad Boys for Life. That's right, we have finally gotten the third Bad Boys movie. I feel like this film has been in talks forever now. But 17 years later, we finally get to see Bad Boys back in action. Basically, the plot of this film, you have, Marcus, who at this point in his career, he's, really starting to consider retiring because he kind of wants to leave behind more of a legacy than just bullets and body counts. But then you have Mike, who he just isn't really ready to let go of that Bad Boys lifestyle yet. But then this new villain kind of comes along and forces the two guys to kind of team up one more time for one more mission. So that's basically the plot of this film. So going into this movie, when this movie was, first announced, there was, I liked the trailer when we first got the, initial trailer. I was like, okay, this looks good. But when we found out kind of the release date and stuff, there was a couple things that I was, initially worried about going into this third entry into the Bad Boys franchise. And that's one, it's been 17 years since we got the last Bad Boys film. And as other franchises have shown, sometimes having such a long gap in between sequels isn't always necessarily the kindest to that new movie coming out. So that was something that I was definitely a little hesitant about. The other thing is that this movie was being released in January. As most of you guys know, January is usually where Hollywood kind of dumps all of its crap. That first month of the year, they're just like, yeah, we're just going to throw this movie out there. So when I saw Bad Boys for Life was going to be released in January, I was like, oh no, that to me that just doesn't really make any sense. It's kind of a summer action blockbuster type of film, and this thing's getting released in January. So to me that was kind of throwing off a red flag, and the studio saying that we're not really sure if we really believe in this movie. So those were a couple of the things that I was just a little hesitant about going into this film. Now, does it live up to the hype? Is it, a good successor to Bad Boys 2? Or is this just more of the January crap that we've kind of gotten this month so far? We'll go ahead and talk about it.
Wait. Hey, freeze, bitch! You freeze, bitch!
Oh, shit. I'm fucked.
Now back up, put the gun down, and give me a pack of tropical fruit bubblicious. And some Skittles.
So first off, guys, I am happy to tell you that this is actually a worthy successor to the franchise. It definitely, like I said, I was a little worried going into it, but just seeing Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, back on the big screen together doing this, their relationship and their chemistry in the film is definitely one of the highlights for me. It's almost like, these guys kind of picked up basically right where they left off. And, one, it's great to see Martin Lawrence back, but the other thing for me, I felt seeing Will Smith, because he's still done, a decent amount of movies over the last several years, but he's definitely had some that have been kind of or really not so good in my eyes. But he feels, right at home in this type of movie. So having him and Martin Lawrence, back in the screen together, the comedy I thought was on point. So that was definitely one of the biggest highlights of this film. Just seeing those two interact with each other. They really complement each other, and you can tell that, there's definitely a good bond with those two characters. Another thing that I liked about this movie is that, it acknowledged that these guys are definitely, older now. They're both middle-aged, and it didn't pretend to make them seem like, these, because the first film, they were kind of these young guys, and it definitely didn't try to pretend that it's like, oh, yep, they can still run around and do all this stuff, and they're just these young guys having fun. No, it definitely actually, it had some decent depth to it, which I wasn't something that I was really expecting. But there's definitely, some moments, like I said, with, Martin Lawrence's character. He's, talking about wanting to give this lifestyle up because, he's trying to think of, the rest of his future and what he wants to do with it. And he doesn't really want to, be shooting at people and running from, dodging bullets, things like that. So there's definitely some decent depth and heart to this movie. And there's also a good amount of, stake in this film as well, which was something that really kind of caught me off guard because, these two characters, nothing could really happen to them. But no, like definitely with this villain in the film, there is some things that happened during the movie that I really wasn't expecting. So that was definitely a nice touch to kind of just keep me a little bit more invested in the film. And I think a lot of people will probably be caught off guard by that. So definitely another plus as far as, things for this movie go. And then I would say a couple other things just that I really, as I mentioned, just now, the villain I thought was, pretty solid actually. There was, you kind of understood why they were doing what they were doing, and they really upped the stakes in this film. So it wasn't just kind of just like a throwaway type of villain. Now, there was something, and I won't go into like spoilers, there was something towards the end of the movie, there's like a twist that I'm still not sure how I really feel about that. I'm really divided on it. Like, part of me is like, oh, it's kind of cool, but then part of me is like, I don't know if that really works for me. So I'm definitely divided on how I feel about kind of the big twist at the end. You guys will have to let me know what you think as well. But I thought overall the villain, did a good job. And I even liked, they have this squad called Ammo, which you get to see kind of in the trailers. That was actually something something else I was a little bit worried about, like anytime like trying to like introduce like new characters into like an established franchise, it doesn't always work. But I actually really liked this crew. I thought they all had solid performances, and so they were a nice addition to the movie as well. And the action, that's one of the big things that people come to go see the Bad Boys franchise for. I thought the action looked great. The new directors for this film, because it wasn't done by Michael Bay, I thought they did a really good job as far as how everything looked, behind the camera and things like that. So overall, I was really actually pleasantly surprised by this film, guys. Like I said, was definitely a little nervous going into it, just because the biggest thing being released in like January and how long it's taken for this movie to come out. So I wasn't really sure like kind of what to expect, but I was pleasantly surprised. I think that if you're a fan of the Bad Boys franchise, you'll probably really like this. And if you're just looking for like, a fun action movie to go see, I think you guys should definitely check this out as well. I'm still kind of confused as to why this was released in January, and maybe the studio didn't have a lot of faith in it, but I could see this, definitely released like kind of more into like the May, June, summer months like that. But maybe they just didn't want to put it up against some of these other movies that are coming out later in the year. So, but anyways, as far as a grade, guys, I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10. I had a really fun time with this. The comedy was on point. I was laughing pretty hard several times throughout the film. Thought the action was a lot of fun, and I think that you guys will really enjoy this too. So make sure to go check out Bad Boys for Life, and let me know what you guys thought down below in the comments. And as always, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it, so that way you do get notifications for all my new videos. And as always, guys, make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.